Welcome to Retirement, the Great Escape Plan. I'm Jenny Brown, CEO of JBS Financial Strategists and author of Retirement, the Great Escape Plan. This podcast is about rethinking retirement, not just the numbers, but the life you're planning for. In each episode, the JBS team, along with special guests, will explore real conversations, real experiences, and the decisions that help people approach retirement with clarity and confidence. Because thriving should be fun and naps should be epic. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Retirement, the Great Escape Plan. I'm Jenny Brown, CEO of JBS Financial Strategists and author of Retirement, the Great Escape Plan. And I'm super excited to be here. Today, I'm joined by my business partners and exceptional financial advisors, Warren, Hanna, and Peter Folk. Welcome, team.
Thanks, Jen. Great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jen. Similarly, love being here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks both for joining us. So today's conversation is one we have every single day with our clients. So many people come to us having done a great job on the numbers. They know exactly how much they need to retire on. They've worked out when they can stop working. But what they haven't always thought about, and it's just as important, is what are they actually retiring to? One of the ideas I talk about in our book is creating a postcard from your retirement, a picture of what life could really look like once work isn't the center of everything. Not the glossy brochure version, not the fantasy, but the real postcard. What do your days look like? What's your routine? How do you spend your time? And where your sense of purpose comes from when the office door closes. Because retirement isn't just a financial event, it's a life transition. So today we're going to talk about what a great retirement actually looks like in real life, what surprises people once they step into it, and what we see in the clients who are generally thriving, not just financially, but personally. So let's start there. Warren, I'm going to start with you. From your experience in helping hundreds, if not thousands of clients, what happens when someone's got all the numbers sorted, but hasn't really thought about what life looks like once work isn't the center of everything? Do you notice any patterns that come up, things like purpose or freedom? And what surprises people, most people, once they get there?
Yeah, it's a really challenging time to for clients. It's obviously a transitional period, and they've really focused so hard on getting to that finish line in relation to work. The ones that have been really successful have thought about it and have been in conversations such as with advisors or other people who have been successful in retirement around, well, what am I actually going to retire to? And I guess that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people, is that they all get to the end of work. They generally would say, oh, let's go on a big fancy trip, the trip of a lifetime. They do all those sort of things, but then they haven't thought about it after that, because it's not just a holiday, it's not just long service leave, it is the next stage. And one of my clients famously talks about it as phase 3. So it's phase 3 of their life, because they didn't want to be considered the old retirees. They wanted to be, this is a stage where they're in a position because they're financially free and they're able to make decisions on what's important to them. And I guess the challenge is that after that honeymoon 3-month period, generally after they retire, about what they wanting to do there. I've had examples where clients have been told by their families they've got to find some work or they've got to do something else because they've painted the deck 3 times in the last 6 months because they're just literally bored and they haven't got the same level of motivation and structure to their life. There's only a certain amount of times you can play golf, according to some people. I mean, I'd play golf all day, but some people, they talk about the fact that, well, how many times are you going to play golf? You need to be doing other things in that transition phase. And I guess that's the challenge that a lot of people come up with is what's my routine? What am I going to do? Is it going to be regular contact? Is it travel? Is it spending 6 months up north out of the winter? All those sort of things, I guess, is the real challenge that people have got to get through.
It's interesting. Yeah, I can imagine you playing golf, 4 or 5 times a week. So you won't have any problem with your retirement once you get there. So Peter, building on that, when you sit with clients who have reached their financial goal, how do you help them start shaping what they're actually retiring to, not just what they're leaving behind? Because I think, that seems to be a big shift is, well, it's, that work is over there, but I'm retiring to something over here.
Yeah. And Warren hit the nail on the head before when he said, a lot of clients I deal with, when they first retire is, I'm going on the big trip, whether it's to Europe or wherever it is, but then they don't have a plan after that trip. It's really a case of, I'm going to go to this 3-month trip or whatever it is, and then I'll work it out from there. And they're the clients that generally struggle to retire right because they don't have a plan past that first trip. They don't realize how much time is spent every week working or doing work-related activities, like even just to travel to and from work. Everyone's guilty of it. You also jump on your emails when you get home after dinner and the kids are going to bed or whatever it is. There's all that time that consumes it. And that's where I use a lot of coaching and let clients know, and through client stories of telling them, coach him around who the clients are that retire right and what they're doing, because they are retiring to something and they've got a plan in place, even if they don't have it all worked out at once. A client of mine that springs to mind is they were small business owners. They bought a farm up in country Victoria, and that was always their plan, that once they retired, they would move up to the country and, they'll live off the land, they'll do what they want to do. And they have retired right, because every time I meet with them, they always complain about how busy they are and how the fact that they're busier than they were when they were working. And, they always say, oh, I've got friends and family that tell us that, how are you busy? You're retired. Well, you can't be busy. But, that's what they're done, because they've had a plan and they've worked towards what they want to do. Whereas clients that don't have that plan, they're the ones that I see end up going back to work and not necessarily doing something that they want to do, because going back to work sometimes is part of what people's retirement plan, but it's something that they want to do. They're clients that are just going back to work because they need something to do.
Yeah, it's so true. It's the ones who are successful are the busier ones than what they were.
Yeah.
They say, I don't know how. They come into a meeting and they say, I don't know how I ever was able to fit in work. Like that is the really successful ones. And I guess that's the challenge for people, is to set up those opportunities or whatever they are. And it's also okay to fail at them too. Like, talking about your country one, like I had a similar situation with a university lecturer who always thought that, oh, well, when I do decide to pull the pin, I can always go and become a primary school teacher. And he went and, I think whatever it is, a dip ed or whatever they have to do to get the qualification, because he wanted to go and do that, and lasted 6 months because he couldn't stand the kids. So like, it's okay. It's okay to do a few of those sort of, other activities and try things and see what works and what doesn't, because it's, you're so true. You have to have something that you're passionate about. You have to have something that you're motivated to get out of bed or do every single day, for sure.
Yeah, I hear you both. I mean, passion is key to having a really successful, fruitful retirement. If you don't have that passion and that excitement, there's something missing, I think, and I would think that in most of the clients that I've dealt with, there's that underlying theme of there's always something to do and excitement. I was talking to somebody on email the last couple of weeks, and they were saying, too busy to do anything. We've got 3 overseas trips, and we've got a grandkid due in Canberra in April, and we've got this due and that due. Oh, look, we could probably fit in lunch at some point, but maybe not till June. It's that sort of stuff the whole time, and that's so exciting, is that you've seen these clients sort of come through working really hard, and now absolutely having a ball because they've got a purpose in life and a passion.
Spot on. Yeah.
So what hasn't worked that you've seen?
It is the fact that people haven't prepared, in my mind. I mean, a lot of the social networks and a lot of the connection piece, in retirement is really important, but it does take time. So it's interesting reflecting on a couple of clients have even said to me that they thought that they had friends within their work industry. And then once they stopped having interactions because they were working with them, the contact drops off. So the friendship and the relationship isn't what they thought it was while they were all working together. It takes time to build a network of friends that you want to catch up with or who have similar interests. Because, I mean, while you're working, you'd have a common interest. But when you're not working together, do you enjoy the same things? Do you want to do, volunteer work together? Do you have the same sort of passions around reading books or, study groups or whatever it may be? Because those things don't just automatically turn on as soon as you retire. So I guess reflecting even on my mum and dad, their biggest way of being able to transition was that they just started developing their own interests and were able to go and do their own activities, even though they was both retired and spending time together. Because I think you've got a famous saying, Jen, about your mum about something about lunch and didn't marry you or something or other.
Yeah, dad retired and was seemed to be getting under mum's feet. So she turned around to him one day and said, "Darling, I married you for better or worse and not for lunch." In other words, you know what? You go out and find your own hobbies, go in your own interests, because I have a routine and I'm really happy with my routine. Don't interrupt it. Once he got the message, it worked really well.
Yeah, spot on. And that's the challenge for people. It does take time to build those networks.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always say, I want to go down to Rotary and volunteer, or I want to go and do food share or whatever it is. But, it does take time to get involved in that sort of stuff. And I think we are going to hear from a client of ours later on who's going to talk about his Puffing Billy story. And I think that's a fantastic thing whereby he was able to incorporate some of his interests into a volunteer gig that ended up being his real purpose and passion. So they're the ones that are the most successful. And the ones on the counter side of that is that if they're not successful because they haven't prepared and haven't planned, because it does take time and it takes effort, and you are going to have a few false starts, as our primary school teacher showed us. So,
Yeah. Peter, what have you seen that, I'm not going to say it's an epic fail, but that hasn't worked for clients, or they've changed what they were doing because they just weren't comfortable doing it and it wasn't giving them the spark that they needed?
Yeah, I agree with Warren. It's people who just try and wing it. They pick a date, and say, "Look, I'm going to retire here," and again, they just don't have that plan. They haven't really thought about what they want to do with their days, and they haven't really thought about how much time they spend working. And similar, as you said, yeah, I love what your mum said, Jen, because that's sometimes that's their answer. Oh, I'll just go and do whatever with my wife or my husband, whatever it is, and that's really part of it is they themselves haven't talked about what retirement looks like to each other. And that's another sort of area where people get tripped up, because sometimes, so many clients I meet with, and one's got the passion for travel, one doesn't. Or, one has planned well and, they're thinking about what it is they want to do, whether, sometimes it is that, like you said, they go back to university or the like because they want to learn something that they didn't have time for before, but the partner hasn't. And that is also a challenge when you've got, a husband and wife, they're looking to retire at the same time, but they're not on the same page about what retirement looks like. And that just throws up a whole lot of challenges you got to talk to them both about, because, they one or the other is probably going to struggle. And I've seen that with clients where, the wife's fine, she's living her best life, but the husband's gone back and forth so many times with work and things like that because he just can't work out what it is that he wants to do, except for when the travel piece comes up and suddenly, okay, well, now I'm traveling overseas for 6 weeks or whatever it is. And so that's sort of that 6 weeks. But the moment they come home, what am I doing? And that's I think that's the other piece. You got to make sure, especially as a couple, that you talk to each other, because I find that, there are some things that you're both going to want to do together, but there's also a lot of things that, you may not want to, and you're on 2 different pages and you need to make sure that you're across what each other is after.
So you're a financial advisor. not a qualified counselor.
No.
How do you deal with that in a meeting? I mean, what sort of skills and things, come up, or conversations come up to help them get through that so that they are both on the same page?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's, I guess, for me, and we touched on it before, it's linking back, as we said before, helping clients realize what they need to do to retire right. And it's about helping, the partners realize that retirement doesn't have to be spent together 100% of the time. It's okay to have your different interests. It's okay to have, different ideas of what you want. I met with a client not long ago where the wife really wants to go overseas and do a trip around Europe and go back to see where family came from and things like that. And the husband's in there going, well, I really don't want to sit on a plane for 16 hours or whatever it is to get there. I don't feel, safe. And it is a hard challenge when you've got one that sort of wants to spread their wings and one, but that's sometimes where you just got to coach them around, well, is there other ways for you both to achieve the same thing? Do you, and sometimes it might be a case of, well, have you got, sometimes it's family members that want to go. So it's, why don't you go travel with your sister or your brother that you've always wanted to do? And finding links that way, but also trying to help, in this case, the husband realize, well, that's okay. If they want to travel, let them travel. Let's focus on what you want to do. Because it's okay. As I said, you don't necessarily spend 100% of your time together, as your mum said famously to your dad, Jen.
We have had funny examples with clients whereby they don't talk about their financial situation in any other place but in our meetings. So, you do have to juggle that fine line between a financial advice counselor and coach and, but yeah, it is sometimes a challenging conversations, but it's better to have the conversation than not.
Correct.
I mean, that's the other side of it, because then you get resentment and you get all sorts of different scenarios. But I think, thinking about your question, Jen, the other variable that I think is, everyone thinks that potentially is a really, really positive one, but sometimes can be a bit of an interesting one, is grandchildren. So often what we see is grandparents aren't always on the same page as their own children and parents, because the expectations around kids and pickups and looking after them, while it's fantastic and it's a great motivator and a great source of enjoyment in retirement for a lot of our clients, it also can be a little bit of an interesting one when they want to go on trips or when they want to prioritize themselves. And sometimes you can see clients where you've got to encourage them to, prioritize yourself and look at your own retirement. You worked all the time and sacrificed and got to the point where you are able to do what you want to do. And now you're not doing it because you're feeling obligated to your your grandchildren. So I think it's just another one to really think about as clients transition, that fine line between helping out and being hamstrung, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many clients, they say, oh, Tuesdays is my, my grandkids' day, and, Wednesdays is my this day. But does that stop you from traveling, or does that stop you from having lunch with a friend or something like that? So you're right. You do need to really think about before you potentially overcommit yourself. So just always remember what you're going into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Set expectations at the start. It's a lot easier at that point than it is down the track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So bonus question for you both. So, because thriving should be fun and naps should be epic, what does thriving actually mean for our clients?
Yeah. I think from my point of view, they've got the finances sorted. So they've got that peace of mind, that clarity, that confidence that they can retire. And then they've also got the right mindset and they've got the right plan in place. So they're living the retirement that they love. I link back to a client I referred to in our first episode who they're traveling all the time. That's what he loves doing. He just wants to travel. He doesn't want to leave a legacy. He just wants to live the best life that he can. We've been able to give him the confidence and clarity and everything that he's got the finances to do it. He's now got the plan in place because all he wants to do is travel. and he wants to do, he loves his hiking. He loves his, adventures, and that's what his big focus is. And he's absolutely thriving because, as I said, he's coming back to us every time just saying, can I spend a little bit more? Can I spend a little bit more? What can I afford to do? Because I don't want to leave a legacy. I just want to keep living the awesome retirement that I'm having now.
That's so cool. So how long has he been retired?
Oh, he's been retired now. Geez, the years are going by fast these days. I would say it was sometime, probably about 4 or 5 years now. He's been retired off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe pre-COVID and it's all.
Yeah, or a little bit
Okay.
pre-COVID. Yeah. I feel like pre-COVID was the transition period. But yeah, as I said, these years are just molding together. But yeah, it's been at least 5 years.
And he just keeps building on it
Yeah.
and planning trips and.
That's it. And he half the time I call him, I don't even realize that he's overseas and he's traveling because he's just living the best life. And that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That is awesome. Warren, what about you?
Yeah, for mine, I was just reflecting on what is thriving. Well, I reflect on a meeting very early on in my days at JBS, and we obviously always record all our meetings and all that sort of stuff. And we were talking about it afterwards, and one of the younger team members listened to a part of the conversation. And of the 2 hour meeting, about 15 minutes of it was actually about the financial situation, the report, and how the performance was. An hour and 3/4 was all about golf trips, wine, lunch stories, and holidays. And that's thriving, is where the finances, and you're looking after yourself, and it's right, and you got someone in your corner who's looking after it, but your focus is on what's important to you. And for those particular clients that come to mind, it's like he was loving going on golf trips. He'd just done Bumboog. He was telling me about the rain coming in sideways and the wind and all that sort of stuff. And she had just been doing her long lunches, and that's what she loves doing, and catching up with friends, and then traveling. They had a place at, I think, Portsea or something like that. So all these stories that they're coming back and telling us about, that's what thriving is, where you're coming into a meeting which is supposed to be about how you're tracking, and you end up talking about what's really enjoyment in their retirement. And that's what thriving is.
Do you think that's because there's that level of trust that the clients have almost delegated to you
Absolutely.
to look after the finances so they can just enjoy life?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what, 90% or 99% of our clients are, is that they delegate to us so that they don't have to worry about it. They've got a trusted source, and then they're able to do what's important to them and enjoy it. I mean, a lot of them, there's a fair few of them have got the fingers on the pulse to a degree, but whether they need to know the ins and outs of every little part of the strategy, that's not necessary. We let them know when they need to know and need to do something, and they're out enjoying what's important to them. Exactly what we're talking about: the holidays, the long lunches, the travel. That's the thing, and that to me is thriving. Is when you're not feeling any sort of financial burden, you're not feeling any sort of obligation. You're just out there doing what's a priority for you.
No, that's fantastic. So before we wrap up, any closing comments on that? I love both of your stories of what thriving is. It's fantastic, and that transition is just so important to make sure that you don't have to have it all nailed today, but to make sure that you've got a plan in place to get there. Anything from either of you?
Yeah, I just finish off by saying that it is going to be different, but have a crack, because if you try different things, you find what you like, and that's what makes it most fulfilling in my view, is the people who have had a go at doing different things and are really engaged and really looking forward to that transition or the phase 3.
Fantastic. Peter?
Yeah, and just reiterating, I guess the whole sense of this conversation is the best thing that you can do is just have a real think about your retirement and what you think you might want to do. And as Warren said, you might not get it right in the first place, but having a go and just even, write a list down of what you think might be the most epic retirement. I mean, you touch on your book, Jen, having a postcard. Have a think about, if you're sitting here in 10 years' time, what is the best for, and you've had a really good 10 years. Well, what does that look like? What boxes have you ticked? What things have you crossed off your bucket list, or whatever you want to call it? That's the stuff that's, we're starting to think about.
That's great. I love it. The bucket list and the postcard. So thank you both. They are absolutely awesome tips, and I think that is a really great place to finish. So, as we wrap up today, I hope this conversation's helped you reframe the way you think about retirement, because retirement isn't just about reaching a number. It's about knowing what that number allows you to do, how you spend your days, who to spend them with, and what gives you a sense of purpose once work isn't the center of everything. What we see, as both Warren and Peter said time and time again, is that the people who enjoy retirement the most aren't the ones with the perfect plan. They're the ones who have taken the time to really think about what they're retiring to, not retiring from, or what they're leaving behind. So if retirement's on your horizon, or even if it's still a long way off, maybe take away today a simple one. Start picturing your own postcard from retirement, not that glossy brochure version, the real one. What if you were sending yourself a postcard from 10 years or 20 years down the track? What does it look like? And remember, you don't have to have all the answers straight away. Retirement's a transition. It's not a single moment, and it's okay to shape it as you go. Because thriving should be fun and naps should be epic. Until next time. Thanks for listening to Retirement, the Great Escape Plan. If today's conversation raised questions for you or simply gave you something to think about, that's a great place to be. Retirement isn't about having everything figured out at once. It's about starting the right conversations and taking thoughtful steps over time. You'll find helpful resources and references related to this episode in the show notes. For more tips and insights and practical guidance, we also invite you to visit the JBS Financial website, where you'll find a range of tools and resources to support you at every stage of retirement. You can also follow JBS Financial on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube for ongoing conversations, updates, and ideas to help you plan well and live fully. Join us next time as we continue exploring what really means to plan well, live fully, and enjoy retirement on your terms. Because thriving should be fun and naps should be epic.